Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we're taking a look at this really awesome little knife. This is the CJRB Shale, which I'm pretty sure was a new knife for 2024. Anyways, let's go ahead and get this started without any further ado. Let's begin as always with our blade length measurement. Sharpened edge is coming in here at just about 3 1/16. Overall edge is just a smidge over that. So not a particularly large knife in terms of the actual specs, but it feels like a full-size EDC knife in hand, and we'll get into that more later. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. First up, Ontario Rat 1, and here's the 2. So yeah, not a particularly long knife. You can see here we're very similar in overall length to the Rat 2, but we're a little more similar to the Rat 1 in terms of our width and kind of chunkiness. Although that's only the height of the scale. That doesn't really apply to the... Oh, actually, I guess the total thickness of the knife isn't that far off from the Rat 1. Significantly, I mean, it is thinner, but it's not that... It's not as much thinner as I thought. If I could speak English, that would make this channel so much easier to run. Alrighty, next up, let's bring out our Civivis. There's the Praxis. Here's the Elementum. Yeah, Elementum size knife. Absolutely. And of course, this is the Elementum 2, which is a little bit fatter than the standard Elementum. So let's go ahead and do this again. Yep, it's fatter than the Shale. There, I got that sentence out half decently. Let's bring out our USA made comparisons. Here's our Spyderco PM2. And here is the Benchmade Bug Out. Yep, people are going to be saying it already. Wow, there's a lot of similarities between these two. Yeah, the CJRB is, or the Shale is one of those knives that is definitely going to be labeled with the moniker Bug Out Killer. You know, it is what it is. And let's go ahead and finish this up by comparing it against a couple of, actually, I've got this knife on the table right now, and this kind of feels appropriate. Here's the Kaiser Beglighter. Here is the QSP Penguin. Yeah, very similar in size to the QSP Penguin. And we will end with a couple of CJRB comparisons. Here is against a Feldspar, and here is against the Pyrite Light. Sweet. Awesome. What are we looking at for our materials? Well, pretty similar to a lot of other CJRBs. We have a clip point blade made out of AR RPM 9 steel, which is a spray form steel. We've got G10 scales, multicolor here, as you can see. Steel pocket clip. We do have full steel liners in there, and this is a crossbar lock. And I don't know if CJRB has a unique name for their crossbar lock. Even if they do, I'm not going to check because I honestly think it's stupid to have all these different names for crossbar locks flying around. Just call it a crossbar lock. But yeah, there we go. Let's go ahead and go cut some stuff. Hey guys, you ready to do some review cutting? I sure am. I know the shadows aren't really ideal right now, but I really wanted to film in this location, and this time of day is just when I was available to do so. So, right, we're out in the Chihuahuan Desert, of course. It's Christmas time here in the Chihuahuan Desert. Can you tell? This mountain behind me, this is called the Bishop's Cap, and I actually have a video about climbing this mountain. If you don't watch my adventure videos, you should. They're fun, I think, and I'm getting better at making them. We're working out the kinks. But I really want to choose this area to film review cutting for the CJRB Shale. And why did I want to film here so bad? Well, let me show you something. You see this little hill right here? Yeah. You see how it's got like peaks and valleys, ridges, and then these little shallow areas? Well, those ridges are formed by a rock called limestone, and it's everywhere. It's all over the place. I'm kicking it around right here. It's everywhere. It's made out of calcium carbonate. The dips in between these ridges is made out of a different kind of rock. And that rock is called shale. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to do the geology nerding out thing. So bear with me. So what is shale? Shale is an extremely fine-grained clastic sedimentary rock, meaning that it's made up of very tiny particles of other rocks. Shale is made up of mainly mud and clay minerals, and it can sometimes kind of walk the line between classic sedimentary rock, meaning made up of pieces from other rocks or clasts, and chemical sedimentary rock, meaning that it's formed through chemical processes. Some shale has high concentrations of minerals precipitated by organisms, such as calcite. Shale is also the most common sedimentary rock on the planet, and it comes in a couple different flavors. Again, shale is made from mud, and the shale that we're going to be looking at today is deep marine shale. So let's go ahead and look at it. The rocks that we're looking at right here are Pennsylvanian in age, or about 300 million years old, and these are deposited on ocean floors. We've got two main kinds of rock here. These shelves right here, you can see 1, 2, 3. These are limestone. This is a chemical sedimentary rock made up of primarily calcium carbonate that's precipitated from the exoskeletons of microscopic marine organisms. This little old sheep herder's hut that I'm balancing on is actually made mainly from this limestone. But in between the limestone, we can see these kind of flat areas or these kind of concave areas in some places. That rock is shale. Now, you can't really see it that much. You can see right here, most of the rocks on the ground, all these loose cobbles and pebbles and stuff, that's all the limestone. The shale is very, very susceptible to erosion. The limestone is a little stronger than the shale, so the shale will erode at a faster rate than the limestone does, forming the limestone cliffs and then these shale slopes. And by the way, these limestones are an excellent source of marine fossils. Look at that cute little brachiopod. Look what I just found. This is a big old selenite crystal. I can see you through that. I need to clean it up so it's fully transparent. But this came out of the shale that's out here, and we'll see some of that here in just a second. Oh, look, here's some better selenite crystals. Anyways, you might be wondering, okay, why are you finding all of these marine fossils? Why are you talking about ocean deposits when you're in southern New Mexico? That's like about as far from the ocean as you can get. And you're right. But 300 million years ago, it wasn't. This area was not 4,000 feet above sea level. It was at sea level. And a huge ocean covered this area and deposited thousands and thousands of feet of rock over millions and millions of years. And we can track the evolution of this ocean through these rock units that I'm standing in right now. Right here, we can actually see the contact between the more resistant limestone and the shale right here. Now, all these beds are tilted like this because of Rio Grande rifting and normal faulting. We're not going to get into that too much right now, but it's really cool to see this contact. Limestone, shale, and this actually shows us a transition in oceanic environments. A lot of the fossils come from the limestone, but if we look here in the shale, we can see that there are plenty of fossils in the shale as well. Focus up, camera. Such as all these little brachiopods that I just pulled out. You can see they're all over the place. Right here we can beautifully see this transition. So right now I'm walking in the shale. You can see it's this dark colored, kind of very loose rock. In fact, shale is almost always a very dark color, either grays or blacks or greens, which makes it ironic that this knife is so colorful. And then the limestones are up here. They're the more blocky rocks at the top. Now these limestones have fossils of coral in them, and coral only like to live in shallow, warm waters. There's no coral fossils in the shale, and in fact, shale forms from deep sea muds. This is a deep ocean. The limestone represents a shallow ocean. So right here we see a change over millions of years from high water levels to lower water levels. Isn't that awesome? Now right here we can see an excellent example of what differentiates shale from other fine-grained sedimentary rocks such as mudstone or siltstone. Because technically shale is made of mud and silt-sized particles, but shale is fissile, meaning that it breaks apart in these flaky, you can see what I'm talking about right here. This is rock, but you can powder it with your hand. It breaks apart in these flakes along predictable planes. Well, not super predictable, but it has these planes. And actually, in this shale here, we can see these thin little deposits of that gypsum, that selenite, going up and through. And yeah, it's just cool. It's really, really cool. And look at that. You can really see those gypsum veins in the shale right here. You can also see how easily the shale gets eroded by water flowing through this arroyo. More resistant limestones, but then man, that water just absolutely wrecks this shale. So there you guys go. A little bit of a history on the Paleozoic of southern New Mexico. Oh, look at that sunset. And hopefully you guys learned a little bit about sedimentary rocks. By the way, I appreciate those of you that put up with my rock rambling antics every now and again, and I hope some of you actually enjoy it and get some good educational content out of it, because I'll be honest with you, I love rocks. Rocks rock. They get my rocks off. And I'm just gonna keep doing this kind of stuff because I kind of want to milk the novelty of being the only knife reviewing geologist on the platform. At least I think I am. If I'm not, let me know in the comments below, but you know, it gives my channel its own unique brand of me-ness, I guess. And on YouTube these days, being unique is rare, in my opinion. Very rare, so I do what I can. Alright, let's go back to the knife content. Alrighty, now that we got all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the CJRB Shale. I love this knife. Spoiler alert, I think this thing is really, really freaking awesome. Let's start off with the ergonomics, actually. Fantastic. This knife fits in your hand so well. I was actually worried, just reading the specs of this knife and just kind of seeing pictures of it and seeing it on other people's channels, I was worried that this knife would feel kind of small and delicate. It does not at all. It's got full liners. These ergos fill the hand so well. This thing, they're flat scales, but they're shaped so well. Very neutrally, but we've got this hump back here that fills your palm nicely. Got a good well here for your finger to lock in. This little poon spoon back here. It's a great place for your thumb to land. And there's really just one grip for this knife. Right here. Or I guess technically hammer grip. And I love that. That's all you need on this knife. The edge comes back and you've got enough control over that blade. It's just, these ergos are fantastic. I'm a big fan of them. And the knife is still fairly slim. Let's start with the action. Crossbar lock, running on bearings. Yeah, that action feels impeccable. It feels great. This is a fantastic crossbar lock action. Those thumb studs are placed in just the right spot. You've got a little chamfer so you can get to them easily. They pop out. They pop that blade out with authority. The crossbar lock is easy to grab onto. The knife is nice and smooth. The tension feels just right. It's a good action. And actually, we've got a tiny bit of play right now, but I should be able to adjust that out. I've been using this knife a lot, and the action's great, even with the blade adjusted where there's no play. Is there any up and down? Nope. Alrighty, let's go ahead and talk about the carry. So, it's got CJRB's standard clip, which is a clip that I actually enjoy, and it is reversible. Thank you. That makes this knife 100% ambidextrous, lefty-friendly. That's awesome to see. The clip works well in and out of the pocket. You see there. No complaints. It does land on this texturing here, but the texturing is not super aggressive, so I think it works out just fine. The knife itself is slim, folds up into a pretty compact little package. It's fairly lightweight. You're not going to have any problems carrying this knife. I don't think many people will complain about that. All right, let's cut some stuff with it. So we have a fully flat ground AR RPM 9 clip point blade. Look how thin that gets. Oh my gosh. Yep, this thing is ridiculously thin behind the edge, and it cuts like it too. You can also get down to that tip fairly easily for your utility cuts. And you can see here that this box right now is full of all my other review cutting materials and some odds and ends that I've picked up. Oh! Yeah, this thing's a slicer. It slices really, really nicely, guys. Utility cuts, again, this clip point blade allows you to get to the tip fairly easily. You can make pretty good, strong utility cuts. Okay, let's grab our rope. It's a little ropey piece. Let's do a pull. I have to go buy some more rope soon. Oh, effortless, effortless. See how it does here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, not bad. Actually, I'm honestly kind of surprised it did that well because, again, very, very thin blade. We don't have a whole lot of mass going out there to this area where I'm pressing down. And again, I'm just, for those of you that might not know, I'm using like as enough pressure to, I guess, get the blade going, but no more than that. So yeah, there we go. Not too shabby. All right, pool noodle time. Let's get it. That felt weird. All right, let's get through that. 1, 2, 3. Interesting. Interesting. What was happening there at the end? Oh, I see. This pool noodle got punctured there at some point. Let's cut from the other side. Do a couple cuts from the other side and see if it's any different. Yep. 2. Whoa, tried to go a little too thin there. That was ambitious. There we go. All right. So yeah, felt good going through the whole way. This part right here, just kind of a blowout from the pool noodle. I'm not sure what happened there. But these cuts here, try to go way too thin on that one. Should have probably expected that. This one here looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. And yeah, we went decently thin with that. So, hey guys, it's Editing Gideon. So the pool noodle cut test in this video was kind of bothering me because even though, yeah, the first couple of cuts were because there was like perforations in the pool noodle that, I don't know, came from something else that kind of messed it up. The second round of pool noodle cutting still wasn't doing as good as I knew this knife can do. And I figured out what the issue was. Is because I had sticky stuff on the blade. So I have actually cleaned up the knife. Wow, look at that. Amazing, huh? We finally did something. And we're going to do a couple more cuts here just so you guys can see. And we're going to do them around the camera, I guess. I'm going to stand up and do this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there we go. So this is exactly what I was expecting this knife to be able to do. Right there like that. Focus up, camera. Right there. That is nice and wafer thin. Yeah. Look at that. So that's a good representation of what this knife can do. But it had sticky stuff on the blade when I was doing the review cutting. And so it was getting a little bit hung up in there. So there you go. There's a more accurate representation of its abilities. Okay. Back to the video. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. There's a look at that knife. Let's go ahead and get back to the table. And we're back. Let's go ahead and get into what I'm liking and not liking about this very cool knife. And I forgot to clean off the blade. That's probably going to look kind of gross. I am sorry. I always forget to clean off. Actually, you know what? No, I didn't forget. Forget what I just said. Forget what I've said in any previous videos. Gideon does not forget to clean his blades. I purposefully leave them like this so that people can't say that I don't use my knives. See, it's a feature, not a bug. Got it. Got to maintain some kind of level of professionality on this channel, right? But anyways, let's go ahead and start with what I'm liking and not liking. Number one, I think this is a really good looking knife. This had the potential to be just another derivative drop point 3-inch bladed crossbar lock knife, but this knife actually has a little bit of personality. So number one, this blade isn't just, a regular drop point. This is actually a clip point blade, but I like this swedge up here. It's a really, really neat swedge. It's a little bit eye-catching. The blade itself just looks a little bit different. You've got the poon spoon, the swedge, and then the clip. I think it's a good-looking blade. It's got a little more personality than something like a Benchmade bug out. And they offer these knives in a bunch of different color options. I obviously went with the brightest and most colorful version just because that's what I like. And I think it adds a lot of personality to this knife. These colors kind of remind me of like the Broncos. Not that I'm a Broncos fan or anything like that, but just kind of remind me of that. I also do like the way that they've milled the G10 for these scales. So we have a textured portion here, and it's kind of like an insert or an inlay without actually having an inlay. We've got like a little bit of diamond texturing going on in there. It's cool. The grip on the G10 is really, really nice. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but this just adds a little bit of visual texture as well. So I like it. I think these are good looking scales. Again, if this is a little bit too bright for you, they've got other versions that you can get. Let's go ahead and talk about the ergonomics, because the ergonomics of this knife really, really impressed me, and that's probably my favorite aspect of this knife. I was expecting this knife to be a little bit smaller than it actually is, just because, just from reading the specs. And then when I got it in hand, I was really surprised at how hand-filling it is, and the ergos are really, really good. Number one, this little poon spoon here works great. It's a good natural spot for your thumb to land. If you're going to be doing a grip like this, of course you can also do your hammer grip. But the handle itself is shaped really, really nicely. We've got a little bit of a hump here and a slight hump here at the bottom. That means it just fills out your palm really, really nicely. This area here is kind of chamfered out into a finger well. Very, very comfortable. There's no real hot spots on this knife. The clip doesn't bother me in the hand. Again, we talked about that texture. It gives me a very secure feeling. I'm not going to drop this knife even if my hands are wet or grimy or anything like that. The scales are not contoured, but the knife actually kind of feels contoured. You can see here they're completely flat slab scales, but because the knife is a little bit taller than you might expect, it helps it to feel kind of like it's contoured. It's a little bit of a weird thing to try and explain, but it's just supremely comfortable in hand. I also appreciate that I feel like I'm right behind the edge in this grip here without them having to give me a finger choil. I've got a lot of control over this blade. I can do whatever I need to in basically whatever task might arise without having to bother with a finger choil. It's just nice. It's simple. It's elegant. They put a lot of thought into designing these handles, I think, and I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and talk about this blade. AR RPM 9 is a steel that I enjoy. Sharpens up really, really well. In fact, I just sharpened this knife the other day. Let's focus in here. The blade itself is nearly a full flat grind. For all intents and purposes, it's a full flat grind. That's probably my favorite all-around EDC knife grind because you maintain a little bit of strength while still being very, very slicey. I mean, look how thin that gets. That's a very acute tip. And yeah, this is a great all-around blade. As an EDC knife, this was thin and slicey enough for small tasks. But I also carried this with me quite often on a couple of my adventures out in the desert, out in the woods, camping and hiking, things like that. And it felt like a really solid, durable knife for some bigger, heavier duty tasks. which I really appreciated. The other thing too is this coating actually held up really, really well. I was very surprised. Normally, budget knife coatings don't hold up all that great, but this one has done pretty dang well. This is a great blade shape too. You've got some straight, you've got some belly. The tip drops down so you can get to your utility cuts fairly easily. Straight clip point blades are probably my favorite EDC blade shape. And this is a great example of why that is. Let's go ahead and talk about the action. Thumb studs, crossbar lock, it's a classic combo. It's a good combo. I really like how CJRB is giving you this little chamfer here by the thumb studs to help you get access to them. They do it on things like the Pyrite. They do it on this Damascus feldspar. Focus up camera. Once again, guys, we're still trying to get used to the new setup here. But it makes it very natural to open the knife. This guides your thumb right to where it needs to be. Thumb studs are positioned excellently. This is a very, very good crossbar lock action. The tension on these Omega springs is exactly where I want it. Yeah, that blade rockets out with some authority, which is not something you always get with crossbar locks. It's good to see it here. The axis lock itself, the studs stick out far enough to be able to grab easily. And yeah, the knife is easy to manipulate. Washers in the pivot. Yeah, great action as far as all that goes. Next thing, the pocket clip is reversible. This is a completely ambi-friendly knife. Thank you, CJRB, for looking out for the lefties. They all appreciate that. Because this is a crossbar lock with a dual thumb studs and a reversible clip, you're going to have the exact same experience carrying this knife, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. Next thing, T8 hardware, and minimal hardware at that. I love it. I love it. Thank you, CJRB. They're listening to feedback, and they're giving us a little something, which is always good to see. Fit and finish out of the box was excellent. The build quality feels very, very good. There's just not a whole lot wrong with this knife. Another thing I want to point out too, actually, is if we focus up here, they did the plunge grind pretty well too. Not perfectly. You can see it ends right there, but you've got a few sharpenings out of this guy, so I like seeing that as well. Okay, let's move on to some of my complaints. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot here to complain about. I really, really like this knife. The one thing I would complain about is that the pivot is free spinning. It's tooled on both sides, but is technically a free spinning pivot. I didn't have much issues with it, but that could be an issue for you. And honestly, that's about it. I think that's all I really have to complain about with this knife. So let's go ahead and go on to my final conclusions. How much does this thing cost? $50. Is it worth $50? Yes, absolutely, it's worth $50. This is fantastic value. I'm going to cut to the chase. Do I recommend this knife? Yes, absolutely, 100%. I love this knife, and it might be my new favorite CJRB. And that's a crazy statement. For a long time, the feldspar was my favorite CJRB knife. I own more versions of this knife than any other knife in my collection. I love the feldspar. It was kind of put to the test when the Pyrite Light came out. I also love this knife. But I think this is a better knife than both of those right there. This is just a stupid, stupid good knife. And it's a this might be my knife of the year for 2024. This thing is just really, really good. It's nothing, honestly, it's nothing fancy, but it does everything it needs to do right. And at the end of the day, that is what you want in a pocket knife. You know, originality doesn't really mean much if the knife doesn't function well. This knife here, yeah, it might not be the most original thing ever, but it works and it does everything it needs to do perfectly. And I appreciate that a whole lot. So, do I recommend this knife? Again, yes, absolutely. It's a banger. I love this thing. Alrighty, and that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Big shout out to my channel members at the cowboy level. I really appreciate everything they do for the channel. If you want to become a channel member, there's a button down below. As for the rest of you, if you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe, and share the video. That really does help the channel. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.